Democrats use a vile distraction to avert your attention from their failed government shutdown. Let's check it out. Welcome to Rob Schmitt Tonight, a live look at the House floor on this evening, on this Wednesday night. Government shutdown should be ending soon. A familiar face from the Clinton years there speaking, the one that tried to hand the election to Hillary and take it away from Bernie. You remember her from Florida, marking one of the most embarrassing attempts we're seeing tonight. One of the most embarrassing attempts by the Democrat Party to use extortion to get their way is going to end with this vote, and the government will reopen with no power. Democrats cost the country billions, risked airline safety, and caused immense financial pain to federal employees, all in a bid to force the American people to continue to financially prop up Obamacare, the failed healthcare legacy of our 44th president. For more than a month, they did this as Republicans voted to reopen more than a dozen times. As an indication of how phony they are and how brain dead their supporters are, they blamed Republicans through this entire process, before proving to the nation Sunday that it only took 8 Senate Democrats to end all of this. They claimed it was a Republican shutdown over and over again. It was embarrassing to watch. They were immune to the shame of such an obvious lie.
We need to end the Trump Republican shutdown.
If this shutdown continues, this will be on Republicans.
We want this government open, and we want Donald Trump and his minions to stop lying to the American public.
This is a Republican shutdown.
Donald Trump and Republicans shut the federal government down.
Now hold Donald Trump and Republicans responsible for the shutdown.
Yeah. If it's a Republican shutdown, why were Democrats able to reopen the government? And if it's a Republican shutdown, why is so much of the party enraged at those 8 Democrats for doing so? Take a listen to AOC, furious that she is no longer able to hold the entire government, the American economy, and millions of federal employees hostage to save Obama's failing socialist healthcare legacy.
This is about the Democratic Party. Senator Schumer, there's no one vote that ended this shutdown. We are talking about a coordinated effort of 8 senators with the knowledge of Leader Schumer voting to break with the entire Democratic Party in exchange for nothing.
Yeah. And as I said here, in sometime in the next probably 30 minutes or so, the House is going to vote and the government will reopen tonight. And the fury toward the moderates for that and at Chuck Schumer is palpable.
I think there's a lot of disappointment as it relates to what those 7 or 8 Senate Democrats decided to do.
The fact that a few Democratic defectors would surrender to Donald Trump is utterly baffling.
There's no way to defend this. And you are right to be angry about it. I'm angry.
So it's set to be a horrible day, a horrible evening for the party until a convenient distraction designed to take all the attention away from this moment tonight when the government reopens thanks to a full Democrat capitulation for nothing. That distraction is Epstein, who has exploded again today in the news cycle. The core of this new manufactured distraction are thousands of emails, some of which were leaked and then all released today after a House vote to do so. The worst of it is an email from Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell. And again, this is a story we haven't shied away from on this network. It says, I want you to realize that that dog that hasn't barked is Trump. Victim, it says, redacted victim, spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been questioned. Looks bad, right? The media exploded right on cue. Trump spent hours with the victim at Epstein's house. The story was everywhere. Front page, top, New York Times, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, all over cable news. That victim's name redacted by Democrats, but unredacted by Republicans. So why was it redacted in the first place? If it could be redacted by Republicans so easily, why did they do it? Well, it was very easy to see. Virginia Giuffre is the victim in question. Both in public depositions and in her own memoir, is the young lady who forcefully exonerated the president of any wrongdoing. And of course, the Democrats and the media didn't want that to be a part of the story. She said Trump was always a gentleman, that she never saw him participate in anything perverse. Caroline Leavitt today pointing out just how sinister Democrats were in this document dump, because they redact the name that clears any issue with this up whatsoever. So it's a weaponized redaction. Take a listen.
This email you refer to with the name of a victim that was unredacted now and has since been reported on in this room, so I will go ahead and say it, Virginia Giuffre. She maintained that there was nothing inappropriate she ever witnessed, that President Trump was always extremely professional and friendly to her. And so I think it's a question worth asking the Democrat Party, and you should all go ask them after this briefing, of why they chose to redact that name of a victim who has already publicly made statements about her relationship with Jeffrey Epstein and is unfortunately no longer with us.
Democrats literally redacted a name that was already public to give the media the ability to not name Virginia Giuffre, so Americans would simply see a headline that said, Trump spent hours with victim in-house. And your mind runs wild, right? And that was the headline everybody saw. Because of that redaction, there was no Virginia Giuffre. That would come maybe 8 or 10 paragraphs down in the article, like it did in the CNN piece. So that's how it works, right? Everybody got to see Trump spent hours with Epstein victim in-house. Where does that take your mind? Takes it right where they wanted to take it. And that's how little they care about any of this. They didn't need to redact that name. That name's already been out there. We know her story, widely publicized. The far weaker allegation made today centers around what Trump actually knew at the time. And this email from Epstein to author Michael Wolff. Trump said he asked me to resign, talking about leave Mar-a-Lago. Epstein saying never a member ever. So Epstein was just mooching his way into Mar-a-Lago, he says. But Trump still asked him not to come to the club anymore. And then he says, of course he knew about the girls, as he asked Ghislaine to stop. Now, one could allege Epstein meant Trump knew about the girls that he was poaching from Mar-a-Lago and from him, and asked Ghislaine to stop stealing his staff. That's one explanation for that. But let's take it at its absolute worst of the allegation made from that. This would be a condemnation of our now president for not doing enough to stop these perversions from 20 some odd years ago. Using an email that admits that he tried to get them to stop. So the president tried to get Ghislaine Maxwell to stop, but he's an evil pedophile because he didn't do more than that? That's the allegation that they're making? Look at X right now and see the rhetoric around this. Compare that to the rhetoric that we have seen today. They redact Virginia Giuffre, who has said openly, this guy did nothing wrong. He was always a good guy. He did nothing wrong. And then they give you this next piece, which proves nothing. It proves that what? He didn't do more than say, cut it out? Congressman Eric Swalwell, pretending to not know the victim was Virginia Giuffre, puts on X today. He's a congressman. I don't know how, but he is. If Trump had sex with an underage girl, should he still be our president? This is how fake these people are. This is the capacity that they have to lie, what they're willing to say, how hungry they are for power, how desperate they are. This is what we're dealing with. This is their capacity. And the story is everywhere. It's all over the place. It's the only thing anyone's talking about. It's completely manufactured out of nonsense. It's really scary how this all works and how, again, the Democrat agenda, the mainstream media, their missions are aligned. They did this very well today, and they took over the entire feed of information that you get, and they did it very effectively. Congressman Jason Smith, chairman of Ways and Means, joins us now. Congressman Greg Murphy, co-chair of the Doctors Caucus. Gentlemen, good to have you both on. Congressman Smith, want to start with you. You're going to reopen the government, it sounds like, in maybe the next 20, 30 minutes. Was this the most pointless shutdown that you have witnessed?
This shutdown was nothing but a waste of time. When you're talking about how the Democrats leveraged the pain of working Americans just so that they could try to push their liberal agenda. And what did they get? Nothing. They got the same offer that Thune gave them before there was ever a government shutdown. It's wasteless.
It certainly is. And staying with you just for one more, Congressman Smith, as far as what we saw today with Epstein, what was alleged today, how it was spun today, what your reaction to that?
Rob, absolutely ridiculous. They love to create drama. Let's think about this. If Donald Trump was in fact involved with Epstein in any way, the Democrats would have released that in 2016, they would have released it in 2020, or they would have released it in 2024 in one of the elections. But they didn't because there was no information. There was nothing that showed him being tied. It's just trying to create more drama.
Yeah, it was really, today was a really gross day. There's a lot of gross days in politics, but this was an exceptionally gross one. Congressman Murphy, wanted to talk to you because at the core of why the government just shut down for 40 days was because Democrats are so desperate to save Obamacare. It was all over Obamacare subsidies, demanding that the country continue to spend a fortune to prop up this horrible health care contraption that they have created under the 44th president. It's failing, and the one good line that I will say they have on all of this is that Republicans don't have a better option. Is that still the case, or is there an option in the works?
No, there's a whole lot better option, Rob. Look, the Affordable Care Act is nothing but affordable. This was written by insurance companies for insurance companies, the same things with the premium tax credits. So if you look at the cost of health care that's risen in this country since the ACA came in, it's due to two factors. Primarily, if you look at the cost of health care, look at the rise in insurance company premiums, and then you look at the rise in profits. Sure, medications are more expensive, hospitalizations are more expensive, but now the taxpayers are literally feeding the insurance industry machine, and that's what Democrats want this to continue to do. We don't stand for this. There needs to be absolute reform, and until this city really gets a hold of reforming the insurance industry, healthcare in this country will be unaffordable.
Elaborate more on that, Congressman Murphy. You want to change the insurance industry, and as far as the president's talking about giving direct cash payments to the people instead of these insurance companies, is that part of the forming plan that Republicans are going to have? Because they're going to need something, right?
Well, yeah, they're going to need something. But look at, Rob, in the ACA, 80%, it said that 80% of premiums had to go towards directly to health care, giving 20% for insurance companies for, quote, administrative costs and profit. Anytime an insurance company has millions of dollars donated to name a stadium while people cannot afford premiums, something is wrong. We need to drastically reduce the amount that is paid to insurance companies for administration for their profits and bring them in line with something that they produce a product that's affordable for the American people and actually pay the people who deliver the health care.
Let me give you just one more quote really quick. Congressman Murphy from Politico, a health policy guy in Politico today, says with direct cash payments from the federal government into special accounts, healthy people could get much cheaper insurance that has medical underwriting and doesn't cover pre-existing conditions, but that would leave much sicker people in the Obamacare pool and likely send Obamacare into a death spiral. What do you make of that assessment?
Yeah, look, the devil is in the details. Insurance in any industry, in healthcare or in the housing industry, oftentimes, or it has to be paid by people who don't use it to pay it for the people who overuse it. If people have chronic diseases, diabetes, renal failure, et cetera. There just needs to be a balancing out of that system. It needs to work for the people that it's supposed to work for, and that's the patients and the people who deliver the health care, not the huge, massive administrative burden and middlemen that has been achieved through the ACA.
Yeah. Congressman Smith, I got 30 seconds left. We're going to see a vote about how long from now? I just want to know for show purposes.
Roughly in about 30 minutes, we'll be voting to reopen government, to get people paid for the work that they've been doing as federal employees, to make sure that working families that are relying on SNAP are going to receive those benefits as well.
Okay. Congressman Jason Smith and Greg Murphy, gentlemen, good to have you both on. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Matt Schlapp, Kari Lake join us now to talk more about all of this. Good to have you both here. Kari, I want to play Nicole Wallace on today's Epstein dump from MSNBC.
A bombshell, explosive, newly unearthed emails from Donald Trump's former friend, the deceased sex offender, Jeffrey Epstein. What is Donald Trump trying to hide and why?
Based on what we learned today, Kari, and we've parsed through. I mean, I like I said, we haven't shied away from this story at this network. We know it's not popular with the White House, obviously, but we have a general interest in what's in these files. I want to see these files released. But what I saw today was the most vile behavior with information that the way that they tried to manipulate it, the way that they lied about it, was really about at the bottom of the barrel, I'd say.
You can't hate the fake news enough. I mean, it's so bad. And what we saw, I saw the headline today and I immediately ignored it. People love President Trump. They know it's just one smear hit piece lie after the next. They've all been disproven. Give it an hour, a minute, a day, and it'll be disproven. But it's really rich of Nicole Wallace. She's up to her earlobes, her husband and she are in this Russiagate story. And frankly, she should recuse herself from covering the news right now. She's so up to her earlobes in it. And you could almost feel a sigh of relief from her. Great, they threw some fake story out there for me to talk about so I don't have to continue to implicate my husband and my family in this. It's just really outrageous that MSNBC is even allowing her to work with the implication of her husband being part of the whistleblower situation with James Comey and the whole Russia collusion story. Right. People aren't buying the lies the fake news media is trying to put out there to smear President Trump.
Yeah. Matt, they literally redacted the victim's name, Virginia Giuffre, not to protect her, but so the media wouldn't have to tell Americans that the woman that Trump spent time with also was the same woman who fully exonerated him of any wrongdoing on multiple occasions, including under oath. Want to just show one of the times that she exonerated the president, 2016, early 2016. Trump was not the president, had not been elected at this point, wasn't even the candidate yet. I don't think Donald Trump participated in anything. That would have to be another assumption. I never saw or witnessed Donald Trump participate in those acts, but he was in the house of Jeffrey Epstein. So there you have it right there. And they conceal that name so that they can do exactly what they did today, win politically. That's how much they really care about the Epstein files.
Well, the one thing you know for sure, that if the Democrats felt like they had anything on Donald Trump in these files, you can guarantee, much like the auto pen, the woke, radicalized staff around Joe Biden would have leaked this all. So that's, if anybody has any concern out there in America, that's your test. So anything we hear from these files moving forward will go along the lines of what you described. But I also think, Rob, first of all, thank you to Newsmax and to you for covering the story. It is an important story. And, you know, the fact is this, which is the Democrats are very desperate. They lost the first shutdown that I can remember in my lifetime. The last time we won these shutdowns, Ronald Reagan was president. We won the comms around the shutdown, and the Democrats blinked. And so, of course, what do they turn to? Sexual scandal of a Republican. This is what they do when they can't win on the debate that's happening right now in the House of Representatives.
Yeah, really.
And you know what?
Go ahead, Kari, go ahead.
I got to say something really quickly. Matt is so correct. I'll never forget back when I was working in news and the whole Bill Clinton Sexgate story broke and you know, he was going through, he was found guilty, all this stuff happened. And what happens at the same time? The news station I worked for put out a shed fire to give us something to talk about because they didn't want to have to. The fake news didn't want to have to cover a Democrat being hurt by their own actions and having bad news come out. Anything but covering a bad news story for the Democrats, and they'll cover it and make it the lead story.
Yeah, you want to know how fake all this is. I mean, the way they're screaming about this story tonight, Bill Clinton still does events all the time. And when he walks in the door, he is cheered on. They shake hands with him. I mean, they love the guy. He doesn't have to hide from anything, even though what we know is in these files. I mean, that's an indication of the reality of this story and what these people actually think, what they believe, and what they really care about. I got to leave it there. We're going to have a big show with the government reopening. Good to see you both, Kari and Matt. Thanks, guys. Live pictures here, House floor. Maybe in the next 20 minutes or so, 25 minutes, we're going to see the big vote for the government to reopen, and then the president will have to sign it away. And then finally, that big tumor in Washington can get back to burning your money. Next, Trump and the H-1B visa. Stay tuned.
Charlie was the best of America, and the monster who attacked him was attacking our whole country.
Before Charlie Kirk died, he issued a stark warning of terrifying dangers ahead in a new book, Pagan Threat, authored by Pastor Lucas Miles. Charlie said Pagan Threat could save America and that you must read it. Get Pagan Threat free with Newsmax's special offer. Plus, get Dick Morse's new book, The Real Charlie Kirk. 2 great books with our free offer today.
From our orchards in Oregon to your holiday table, Harry and David delivers a legacy of gourmet excellence. Our prepared meals, fine wines, charcuterie, all crafted to elevate any celebration. Make it a hand-picked holiday with Harry and David.
Hi there, I'm Dean Heskin, President and CEO of Swiss America. Most investors believe their IRA, 401k, and bank accounts are reliable and safe. But what if our economy becomes so dire that you're restricted from accessing your own money? The fact is that should your bank be in trouble for holding bad loans, the burden could fall on you to help bail them out. Even more concerning is that U.S. financial regulations allow banks to impose withdrawal limits on your hard-earned savings. But there's something you can do about it. Our team at Swiss America has a report called The Secret War on Cash. Learn how to protect yourself with assets that can remain outside the control of banks and other financial institutions. For over 40 years, Swiss America has been one of the most trusted metal firms in the country. So don't wait. Call or text the number on your screen today for financial peace of mind in these uncertain times.
All right, welcome back. MAGA right now divided over the H-1B visa, which, lets companies pull people in from around the world. Many feel that allowing major corporations to import cheap foreign labor is certainly not America first, doesn't feel America first, right? Hurts an opportunity for American workers as well. But others believe that there are some skills in this country that we do need to import. There are just some things that have to come in from the outside. The Chinese can do some things and other people can do some things that maybe Americans can't do any longer. Here was the president last night on Fox News talking about this.
You can't flood the country with tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of foreign workers.
You also do have to bring in talent. When
we have plenty of talented people
no, you
here.
don't. No, you don't.
We don't have talented people here?
No, you don't have certain talents, and people have to learn.
All right, the president taking some heat on that one throughout the MAGA world today. We're going to debate this. Lori Ries is the director of Border Security and Immigration at the Heritage Foundation. Rick Jordan is the CEO of Reach Out Technology. Both have differing opinions on this. Lori, I'm going to start with you. You don't necessarily like the H-1B visa. Back in September, we watched the president slap this $100,000 fee on H-1B workers to come into this country, which a lot of people in MAGA cheered for. Then last night, you hear him say that. How do you square that?
Well, good question. Listen, the H-1B visa has been grossly abused now for 30 decades. 3 decades. The intent was to supplant or to supplement American workers, not to supplant them. And so at every turn, employers have been watering down the standards, they've been watering down the salaries, and they've been doing end runs around the caps that were placed to protect American workers. So employers have lost the benefit of the doubt, and I fear President Trump painted a very broad brush there and should not just be taking employers' word for it, but give serious consideration to Americans. Can they apply for the jobs? Are they allowed to apply for the jobs? Are they being hired for the jobs fairly? Are they being retained for the jobs? And then oftentimes the answer is no.
Yeah. Rick, you're an H-1B guy. You think that there's some jobs we got to bring in from the outside. But I do think there's a fair argument to make that a lot of companies said, let's use this for everybody because you can bring in such cheap labor and rather intelligent cheap labor.
You can. However, what I'm saying, because I'm the CEO of a micro cap on OTC that has to do with cybersecurity, right?
Yeah.
And when you look around the world, I was even in the White House 5 years ago with the first Trump administration talking about AI border security, not the wall, but ways to keep threat actors out. And with other countries, our adversaries like China and Russia ahead of us, they're far ahead of us when it comes to cyber. We need to bring people in, like from Ukraine, from a lot of other countries that have allied intentions with us. And I do know that the $100,000, if you want to call it a visa tariff, if I could kind of dub it that does set the bar pretty high. And I don't think people are going to bring in cheap labor when they have to pay $100K now. So we're talking about higher level talent here.
And that's already started, right? Has that tariff on the H-1B already begun? So it's already being paid.
September 21st. You got it.
So it's already started. Lori, is that enough to clean out the abuse of H-1B in your mind? I would think that's a good point, that if he's already made that move, then you can kind of cheer on H-1B knowing that we're getting the right kind of H-1B. It's not being used to take advantage of the American worker.
Well, again, there's already been workarounds for that. It is a one-time, first-time fee. So those H-1B workers who are already here and renewing or extending their H-1Bs, they don't have to pay the fee. And there's a lot of other exceptions that have built up already to that fee. So listen, I understand that we need a lot of high-tech, high-skill workers, and that was the original intent of H-1B. But over the past 30 years, it has been used for assistant swim coaches or entry-level web designers. We are not talking cyber and AI as employers are using it. And so we need to get back to the original intent, the original caps, and make sure we are cutting out all of the fraud.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's interesting, and it's an interesting conversation to have. We appreciate you both coming on. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, coming up here after the break, we're following the shutdown. You can see the floor. We're going to have Tim Burchett joining us. He made a valiant effort for full Epstein transparency today, and the Democrats stopped him. He's got quite a story to tell. That's coming up next. Plus, Harmeet Dhillon on what happened at Berkeley this week at the final TPUSA event of their tour. That's next.
What's gold is new again. Pardon the pun. But considering gold has been used as currency since around 550 BC, it has been on fire the past year. I'm here with Daniel Boston, the founder of Preserve Gold. Why is gold so stable and such a good investment for many people?
Take the central bank, for example, the Federal Reserve. They print money out of thin air, and then they take that printed money to go buy hard assets like gold to protect themselves against the very risks that they're creating. So I always tell people, don't do what the big players are telling you to do. Do what they're doing themselves.
Yeah, watch what they're doing.
That's correct.
Okay. If people are interested in investing with Preserve Gold, how do they get started?
Text Newsmax to 50505 to get your free information and up to $15,000 in free gold and silver with a qualified purchase. That's right. Text Newsmax to 50505.
All right. No way you can miss it.
As a junior in high school, life can feel overwhelming sometimes.
Balancing homework, friendships, and stuff at home isn't easy. More than ever, kids my age are facing anxiety and depression.
That's why programs like After School All-Stars matter.
They provide access to mental health support, connect us with mentors, and give us tools to succeed. Mental health is complicated.
I'm grateful people are working to support students like me.
Help our parents help us, and find solutions to this challenge.
A peace plan for Gaza. For the plan to advance, Hamas must disarm. Instead,
tonight, terrifying images emerging from Gaza. Videos show Hamas-linked gunmen carrying out a public execution as they return to the streets.
Hamas on a rampage, executing Palestinians, bloody crackdown, spreading terror. For freedom, not terror, Hamas must go.
Make this Christmas the year you go all in on joy. At Balsam Hill, Black Friday is finally here. Celebrate with one of our beautifully crafted lifelike trees and save up to 50% off. Start making memories at balsamhill.com.
Your bathtub is a problem. It's outdated and unsafe. The solution, a stunning new shower from Jacuzzi Bath Remodel, installed in as little as one day.
For the first time ever, we're offering free fixtures and a free shower door with no interest and no payments for up to a year.
Jacuzzi offers so many modern styles with luxurious features like soft closed doors. Jacuzzi delivers style and safety. Upgrade to an easy entry shower with a custom seat and durable grab shelves. Jacuzzi has been a trusted name for over 70 years, and that means quality. It is beautiful. You deserve a bathroom that's beautiful and safe. So don't wait. Call right now.
Call or go online now to jacuzzibathremodel.com. For a limited time, get free fixtures and a free shower door, plus 0 interest and 0 payments for up to 1 year.
Call 800-202-8011. That's 800-202-8011. Call now.
Welcome back. We think in the next maybe 10, 15 minutes, we're going to see this vote to end the government shutdown. The House is going to finally get this done, and then it'll go over to the president. We've got Congressman Tim Burchett from Tennessee joining us now to talk about part of what we saw today, which was, I think, to conceal the embarrassment of what Democrats have just done, which is capitulate on the shutdown and get absolutely nothing in return, has been this Epstein dump. All of a sudden, Epstein is everywhere again with the release of some of these emails. Obviously, what we saw was them faking a lot of it and redacting in a malicious way for no reason to try and make the president look terrible. But Congressman, you said that you want transparency on this more than anybody. You tried to release the Epstein files today using unanimous consent. You say Democrats blocked that. Tell us what happened to you today.
Yeah. Well, we go through a procedure called a UC, unanimous consent. I went to the floor and I made the motion, and the Democrats had verbally told the parliamentarian that they did not agree with it. So in fact, it was blocked. It was not unanimous. And then so it's going to go back through the normal process. And my thought process in all this was both sides are going to pull little fragments out. You saw the Democrats do it today with some email I haven't seen yet. But you got to realize they've had this stuff for 4 years under Biden. And you know good and well that if they had anything on Trump, they would have released. I mean, he's the Antichrist to them. They needed something to get him, and they didn't have anything. They took shots at him, literally and figuratively. They couldn't get him. And if they'd had anything in those files, those things would have been released, and they didn't. Yeah. I'm just trying to go through, cut with all the nonsense. If they really want them out there, let's get them out. But they don't. They want to delay it. They want to piecemeal it. And that's why they don't like Chairman Comer, who's doing an excellent job, who's trying to release them in the proper manner, to remove the innocent girls' names that are in there. But the Democrats are pushing to just get it all out. And then when we try to do it, they try to block it.
Well, isn't that just so interesting? The email that we're talking about here was an email alleging that Trump had spent time with one of the victims, a name that they redacted, at Epstein's house. They redacted that name because it was the name of a victim who has very vocally cleared the president of any wrongdoing and said that he was always appropriate, he never did anything wrong. They didn't want people to know that part of the story. They only wanted people to see that the president had spent time with a victim at a house, at Epstein's house, because they know how terrible that looks and they know where the mind goes. So that's how deceptive and how disgusting they've been on this. And again, you come out and you want full transparency, and then they say no. And doesn't that just tell you everything you need to know?
100%. This is all about politics. It's just like the lockdown. It had nothing to do with taking care of poor folks. It's about power and it's about control, and that's what they want. They don't have it, and they'll destroy this country to get it.
I saw you jump on social media and tell that story. I wanted to hear it on television. Thanks for jumping in front of the camera for us, Congressman. Good to see you as always.
A night of protests turns bloody at the final stop of the controversial college tour.
The Turning Point event at UC Berkeley. Turning Point, as you might know, is the conservative organization founded by Charlie Kirk.
It comes just 2 months after the killing of Turning Point's founder, Charlie Kirk, who was supposed to headline.
Charlie Kirk assassinated at the first stop of the Turning Point 2025 fall campus tour. We'll never forget that day. According to authorities, his alleged assassin scrawled on Antifa slogan on one of the bullets, an Antifa guy, right? Since that assassination, the Marxist anarchist group Antifa has been designated a terror organization by the White House. TPUSA ended that same tour that started with Charlie's assassination at UC Berkeley in the San Francisco Bay Area this week, and Antifa was there in full force. Flocks of keffiyeh-wearing leftists hurling smoke bombs and bottles. 3 arrests have been made so far, including 25-year-old Jihad Fripales, I think is how you're going to say the last name. The interesting thing is the first name is Jihad, who attacked a man in a Charlie Kirk Freedom shirt, repeatedly punching him. The unnamed victim, he tried to rip the cross necklace from his neck as well, because if there's one thing Islamists hate, it's other religions. Jihad has now been charged with assault and robbery as other rioters cheered on the beating. And then the victim is, of course, arrested because welcome to Berkeley. Take a listen.
Hey, white boy, you're bleeding, white boy. Hey, white boy, you're bleeding. Break it up. What happened? What happened, white boy?
Yeah, that's Antifa. DOJ and FBI officially launching an investigation into exactly what happened here. Attorney General Pam Bondi writing, Antifa is an existential threat to our nation. The violent riots at UC Berkeley are under full investigation. Harmeet Dhillon is the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights at DOJ. She's leading this investigation at UC Berkeley and joins us now. Harmeet, good to have you on again. Antifa is now a terror group. What does that change with how you handle this investigation?
Well, the Antifa aspect of it is one, and that's going to be referred to the Joint Terrorism Task Force. I'm in touch with the U.S. Attorney out in San Francisco, who's going to be working with us to help with that. The criminal division of the DOJ is also working on that. But we have other aspects of this. So, for example, I'm also in charge of all the campus speech issues and DEI issues and so forth. And when an American university, particularly a public university, refuses to protect students and protect guests on the campus, and there's a First Amendment angle, like in this case, then that could be something that gets implicated, that could implicate educational funding. It could implicate Title VI and other aspects of our federal civil rights laws. We also have conspiracy statutes that we're looking at to see who was involved here. And yesterday, I promptly acted less than 24 hours after the event to send evidence preservation letters to both the UC Berkeley administrators as well as Yogananda Pittman, the former Capitol Police Chief, who's now the Berkeley Police Chief, asking them to preserve all evidence regarding what they knew about this violence. And what we know so far is they knew this violence was coming, and yet we saw that carnage on the cameras. It's absolutely outrageous and unacceptable in an American city and on an American campus to see that.
The feeling in this country, I mean, there's a lot of vile ideologies and beliefs in this country. The feeling is that the government doesn't respond to them all the same. If we had seen Ku Klux Klan, you know, at a historically black college beating up young black kids, the feeling is that that would be taken down with much more force than we're going to see for Antifa doing this. It's almost like you almost feel like the government has somewhat of a soft spot or a softer spot for radicalism that comes from the dangerous far left. Is that over inside of this government?
Well, let's not generalize. There's governments and there's governments. We don't have a federal police force in the United States. The majority of the policing power in the United States is at the state and local level. It is absolutely true that in California, you're going to get a different response if you're anti-white versus a different response if you're attacking a black person. And that is a violation of equal protection, and that is illegal, and we're going to be looking at that. And, you know, if there were FBI embedded like they apparently embedded them in at the Capitol, you know, there might be a different situation. But we have to respond. So we open investigations. We send the FBI. We investigate. We don't really care what the local authorities are going to do. We can already see that I don't have a really high level of trust in what the local authorities in Alameda County and Berkeley are going to do there. That is why the federal government is going to step in and make sure that we ask questions. What did UC Berkeley know? Why did they treat even guests at this event apparently very poorly at the university level? Why did the police stand there and watch and do nothing? And why is Antifa allowed to run wild in California? These are all things that we're going to get to the bottom of in this investigation.
I love to hear that, because it started to feel like Antifa was just going to have endless free reign in this country to cause mayhem. Harmeet Dhillon, good to have you on. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right. Trump punks Gavin Newsom with an offshore drilling plan. That's next.
To answer your question, forget the long winters, it's dead on arrival. Dead on arrival.
You know Rob Finnerty. He's smart, bold, and stands strong for your values. Rob is fighting for you. Watch Finnerty weeknights only on Newsmax.
Last year, America's leading wireless provider spent $12 billion on advertising and promotions. That's billion with a B. Pure Talk? They hired me to make their commercials on my iPhone. Consequently, they can offer you unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data on a blazing fast 5G network for just $25 a month. Yeah, you can keep paying for those billion-dollar ad campaigns if you want, or you can start saving some real money when you switch to Pure Talk. Everything you need, nothing you don't.
I'm Caden Ballas. I'm a race car driver from Concord, North Carolina, and I like to go fast. Consistency is everything. Every morning when I wake up, I take Balance of Nature fruits and veggies.
Get 35% off your first set as a preferred customer. Claim this offer by using discount code Newsmax.
The poverty is unimaginable. There are people who are struggling.
This is where she washes the dishes.
If you're ever going to allow your Christian faith to rise and to do something for God's chosen people, now is the time.
This is the home of Galena. She's 96 years old.
This is what she had to eat for today.
She has one pot with water and wheat.
My father was killed by the Nazis, and I was an orphan. I didn't know about God. But now, in the cold, hungry nights, I pray for food to the God I've never known. There are good people that love you.
You see the tears. Scripture says joy can come in the morning, and you can be the reason.
Right now in Ukraine, elderly Jews are trapped in unbearable poverty. If you will bless these hurting children of Israel, you will receive God's blessing in return. Your urgent gift today of $25 will help Rush, a survival food box filled with life-saving essentials. Call, scan, or go online now.
I'm not exaggerating when I tell you, I don't know how much longer she could have waited for us to come.
I can't even grow my food anymore. What will happen to me? I'm doomed to starve.
Tens of thousands of elderly Holocaust survivors in the former Soviet Union are living in extreme poverty, hungry, and forgotten. But through the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, we can bring them hope.
It's my favorite food. May you be blessed.
You say to them, we see you and we're here to help.
Please don't delay. Call, scan, or go online now.
Not again.
Your cold is coming! Your cold is coming!
Thanks, Revere.
We really need to keep Zycam in the house.
Only if you want to shorten your cold. When you feel a cold coming, shorten it with Zycam.
All right, Trump punking Gavin Newsom once again, looking to start allowing oil drilling off the coast of California as early as this week. The administration says this push for expanding oil production could rapidly cut Americans' energy costs by 50% or more. The plan proposes 6 offshore lease sales off California's coast between 2027 and 2030. Of course, Gavin Newsom is vowing to fight this because in California, they love their $6 gas. Gavin threatening to sue the administration if they even attempt to drill at a climate gathering in Brazil.
As it relates to offshore oil drilling, it's overwhelmingly opposed by members of all political parties in the state of California. The answer to your question, forgive the long winters, it's dead on arrival. Dead on arrival.
Okay, so there it is from the governor of California. All right, we've got Senator Shelley Moore Capito of West Virginia, also the EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin with us tonight. Good to have you both from West Virginia. We're going to talk about why you're there here in just a minute, but let's start right there, Lee, with the governor's defiance to this plan for offshore drilling. What do you make of that?
Well, listen, I think that the governor needs to be spending his time allowing L.A. Residents and businesses to be able to rebuild from this wildfire. The governor's been trying to troll the president, dropping these bombs, suggesting as if the Trump administration hasn't been all in all year long to help with this historic wildfire response. When I'm talking to the president about California, his level of detailed concern about the flow of water, just to make sure reservoirs are filled, the concern that the president has on forest management. Thankfully, this administration sent to Congress, and then with Senator Capito's leadership, passed 3 Congressional Review Act bills to get rid of Biden EPA waivers on tailpipe emissions, including that electric vehicle mandate, which the president was able to sign into law. Maybe instead of Gavin Newsom spending his time down in Brazil, he should come back home to California and save a state that, unfortunately, a lot of other Americans are are pretty embarrassed by, and a whole lot of Californians are leaving by the day.
Well, yeah, and Senator, we've seen how, you know, kind of the whole tempo has changed on climate change, and it's moved kind of more towards common sense in this arena, which, you know, people like Gavin Newsom, they don't want to leave that behind. But there was so much of that energy, you know, in years past that's kind of dwindled away. People are understanding that we need oil. You know, if you want to have low energy costs, you have to have common sense with it, and we need to be looking at ways to make energy and make life cheaper for people by using energy, which is something blue state leaders just don't want to accept, do they?
Well, no, and I think we need to look at what energy does. We have our own we can be self-reliant on our own energy resources, whether it's oil, natural gas, coal, wind, solar, nuclear, whatever it is. We're going to need it all, and all times too. And so to cut off resources the way the governor of California is explaining that he's going to do, all he's going to do is have California reach even quicker to $6 gas. And that cuts jobs, that hurts people in the middle and lower income. I mean, it stymies development. Energy is the key to prosperity, I think, and that's what we see here in West Virginia, and that's what we're for.
And Senator, sticking with you for just one more here because it's your state. What do you have behind you, and tell us why you guys are together today?
Right. Well, we're out here almost on the Ohio River here in Mason County. This is Nucor Steel. It will be the largest steel manufacturing facility in the country when it's completed. It is enormous, millions of tons of rolled steel and other products for automotive, for appliances and other things. Again, it is manufacturing in this country, creating jobs. We've got, you can see the line of cars. It's quitting time now, and there's a line of cars to get out of here of the thousands of people that are working on this site. It has been a tremendous boost to the West Virginia region and economy, but it's exciting because it's built for the future.
Yeah, and Lee, I had the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, on last night. We talked a lot about this infusion of private money that's come into the country since this administration started, and we're seeing so much of it, like what's behind you, that, you know, that we're making things again, and we're building again, and that's just such great progress. Talk about that, and we're hoping that the American people will start feeling that progress, because it takes a long time to get those wheels spinning.
Rob, this is a $4 billion project here in West Virginia, and as we were arriving and the initial slides and presentation, they were putting up all these numbers for their facilities across the country, hundreds of millions here, hundreds of millions of dollars spent here, hundreds of millions of dollars spent there, and $4 billion spent here. So when I was at West Memphis, Arkansas recently, I had a conversation with you about the groundbreaking for a $4 billion project for a data center. I've seen it in Cheyenne, Wyoming. I've seen it in Idaho Falls, Idaho. Whether it's nuclear, it's data centers. What we're going to see right here is a state-of-the-art, world's best steel manufacturer that is going to not just be producing all of the jobs for this area, but tens of billions of dollars of an impact. And so many other industries coming to West Virginia. We're just at Toyota before we came here, where they're investing in a massive expansion of their West Virginia site, and they'll be relying on Nucor Steel. So this investment, this isn't like hypothetical that maybe like years down the road, trillions of dollars are going to come into the U.S. I've been seeing and witnessing the groundbreakings all across America. People can't wait to be putting their shovels into the ground. It's an exciting time for people who believe in America. And just one other pitch to throw in there, Senator Capito has been leading the fight for permitting reform in Congress. I mean, we're just starting to scratch the surface. More money, more investment will come in if we're able to get permitting reform over the finish line.
Yeah, deregulate, make it easier, let the money pour in, and watch the prosperity come from it. And there's so much. I mean, we're talking trillions of dollars. That's such an unbelievable amount of money that's come in just because people believe that you've got, you know, a president that is behind business. Senator Capito, Lee Zeldin, the EPA administrator, thank you both. We appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, Rob.
All right, thanks, Rob.
All right, coming up here, a Kennedy descendant from the radical left has big ideas. Next.
A rabid dog in his cabinet put a collar on my cousin RFK Jr. and
check their new game day fit. Oh, snap! DirecTV got hot.
That's right. DirecTV is flexing with all those pro and college games at your fingertips. This ain't your dad's cable, son. It's couture.
Okay, thank you so much. I was about to say that. It's couture.
I lost 110 pounds. You couldn't tell at all because of my excess skin. Sono Bello changed that in one visit.
Introducing the new Lift EX, the just one visit, total body transformation everyone is talking about.
I am super happy with my results.
I decided to give Sono Bello a try. Look at me, I have a silhouette. You can see my waist.
Lift EX is Sono Bello's breakthrough 360-degree body lift alternative. Our body contouring experts sculpt, tighten, and lift your stomach, waist, thighs, and backside, all in just one visit with less downtime.
Sono Bello targeted the areas diet exercise could not do. I found me again.
Sono Bello has over 50,000 five-star reviews, and Lift EX is exclusively available at Sono Bello, America's #1 cosmetic surgery specialist. Book your free, personalized consultation today. Easy monthly plans make your best body more affordable than ever.
This year is my year thanks to Sono Bello.
Call Sono Bello for your free consultation today.
Drop is finally here. Drop delivers the weight loss benefits of GLP-1 injections in easy-to-use oral drops, no needles.
That's right. The two big drawbacks with weight loss injections are high costs and weekly injections. Drop is flavorless and odorless, so you can just add it to water or your favorite beverage. Drop offers other advantages over injections too. With Drop, you can personalize your dosage based on your weight loss goals.
And because you add Drop to any liquid, there's no concern about injection site infections, bruising, or dosage confusion.
Drop is the easier, safer, cost-effective alternative to help you achieve your weight loss goals without the needles.
Can't find it anywhere? The Wellness Company has it. No consultation needed. Simply order online and use promo code SLIM to save $100. Visit dropthepounds.com/slim. That's promo code SLIM at dropthepounds.com/slim.
Think you need a new roof? Think again and save thousands.
We're America's most trusted roofer because we always try to save your roof rather than replace it.
We'll restore your roof for a fraction of the cost of a new one. Call now or scan the code and we'll give you an assessment of your roof for free.
Protect your family. Buy LifeVac now.
Thank you, Daddy.
That was us over 10 years ago.
Now LifeVac is responsible for saving over 4,000 lives from choking.
In the time it takes you to pick up the phone and call, another life could be saved.
The LifeVac saved my life in 1 to 2 seconds.
Protecting families has always been our mission. I'm sure you love your family like I love my daughter. Do us all a favor and get your own life back now.
Go to lifevac.net or call 877-LifeVac. Order now.
All right, welcome back. Time now for news from the left. These radicals are coming for the establishment seats on the left. Jack Schlossberg, grandson of JFK, cousin of Bobby Kennedy Jr. in the Trump White House, launching his campaign for Congress in New York's 12th district. That's Jerry Nadler's old seat, and attacking his cousin Bobby today on MSNBC.
A rabid dog in his cabinet put a collar on my cousin RFK Jr. and has him there barking, spreading lies and spreading misinformation. RFK Jr. is a dangerous person who has making life and death decisions as Secretary of Health and Human Services. He's spreading misinformation and lies that are leading to deaths around the country.
Yeah, that family sucks. I mean, JFK was a great president. Bobby was a good guy. Kennedy Jr. is a good guy. The rest of them have just disappeared from, none of them would be identifiable to JFK. None of them would be. Schlossberg, perfect little radical left warrior, fully compliant with even the dumbest ideologies of the left. He'll fit right in like a round little peg. Furious at his cousin for trying to make vaccines safer by removing mercury. Imagine being mad about that. Outraged over efforts to make our food healthier. That's what the Democrat Party is becoming right there. Uniform. Back with maybe a vote at the House.
Closed captioning brought to you by Magna Life Relaxing Leg Cream PM for a good night's sleep.
The discomfort in your legs at night is real. Here's what real customers have to say about Magna Life Relaxing Leg Cream. It's a lifesaver if you have restless legs.
Available at your local retailer.
I'm Elmer Heinrich, at 91 years of age with my wife Shirley, who is 83. Now both of us are still cutting a wide swath in life, all because of Immuno 150. Now, neither of us have any kind of sickness, and we're as flexible as we were 30 years ago, and we still do the physical things we did 30 years ago. Now, we are asking you to use Immuno 150 like we do. Give it a chance for at least 90 days so that you can see what 70 plant minerals and 80 additional nutrients can do for you. You won't believe it. Immuno 150 is an awesome nutritional supplement. There's nothing like it.
Yes, it really is incredible.
Yeah, try it. You will be surprised. Order online or call the number listed on the screen, but don't place your order until after you've watched the videos on our website. Thank you from both of us, and God bless.
Donate your car to today's veterans and help support Tunnel the Towers. The process is quick and simple, and the proceeds from your generous car donation will go to support the good work that T2T is doing throughout our community. Any car is accepted, running or not, and we will pick it up for free. Your car donation will help Tunnel the Towers to help our dedicated veterans and their families. So call 888-980-VETS or donate your car online at today'sveterans.org. Your car donation really does make a difference.
People always ask, why Patriot Gold Group? With over 10,000 clients to date and over $1 billion in transactions, not a single complaint on the Better Business Bureau. Consumer Affairs top rated for 9 years in a row. Over 2,000 5-star reviews. The only company nationwide where you, the client, work directly with an owner. Home of the no fee for life IRA. Gold is up 80% in the last 28 months, 275% since Lehman Brothers collapsed. We are patriots protecting patriots. Give Patriot Gold Group a call at 888-528-4290 before it's too late. Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold and silver dealer 9 years in a row. Call now, 888-528-4290.
Hey, I'm Mike Hammond from Signal Relief. You know the holidays are meant to be about family, laughter, and taking things slow. But when you're in pain, it's hard to enjoy any of it. I know because my back has made life difficult for me. But that's why I love the Signal Relief Patch. It helped me enjoy the holidays again. It helped me enjoy my family again. I've given this patch as a gift to friends, family, and even strangers in pain because I know it works. In a recent study, over 85% of people felt relief. It really doesn't matter where you hurt because the patch works, and it comes with a money-back guarantee. For a limited time, we're bringing back our largest discount ever, 50% off. So get a Signal Relief patch today. Trust me when I tell you, the patch works.
All right, welcome back. House expected to vote any minute to end the government shutdown. We can take a look at the floor. Oh, the Speaker is speaking right now. The President is going to sign this bill once they pass it. He's going to sign it around 9:45 tonight. We understand the government will then reopen. And Politico reporting that the man right there on the screen, Speaker Johnson, is going to bring a vote on a full release of all the Epstein files to a full House vote next week, which is a huge update there. And with that, we're going to hand it over to our friend Rob Finnerty.
All right, Rob, thank you. We're watching two Republicans, Thomas Massie, frequent guest on the network, frequent guest on your show, and Greg Steube of Florida as well. Republicans can only lose two for this thing to pass, but it looks like we might not have a shutdown at some point over the next hour, which is why I hope you watch Finnerty.
Keep watching.
Thanks, Rob.
See you later.